Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Whether you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube live with your families or are catching up with us after the event, I hope you'll really enjoy the next hour or so in our company. The aim of this evening is to share with you, in a socially distanced way of course, a little about the importance to families right across the Highlands of the Haven Centre. And we really hope you'll be so inspired by what you see and hear that you'll decide to get involved with your own fundraising activities to help the Haven Appeal to reach its targets. It's a real shame we can't all be together in person, but we hope that by having recorded this, we'll be able to reach even more of you. So pour yourselves a little of what you fancy, tea, bubbly, a wee G&T. I've got some water over there, and let's get started. I'm so rude, I haven't introduced myself. I am Nikki Marr, and I am delighted to have been asked to host this event in support of the Haven Appeal. This evening, we've got some inspiration for you in the form of Shona McPherson. Now, Shona is an Inverness-based life coach and counsellor. Last year, she took on an epic challenge. She hiked solo across the 2,650 miles of the Pacific Crest Trail. That's all the way from Canada to the Mexican border. That journey took her almost 5 months. And as you can imagine, it wasn't plain sailing all the way. Now, we pre-recorded our conversation from our homes last week, and I'm sure that you'll find Shona's story as interesting and inspiring as I did. Fundraising is well underway to develop the Haven Centre, Scotland's first integrated centre for children and young adults with multiple and complex needs. A site has been identified in Smithton, just on the outskirts of Inverness, and planning permission was granted earlier this summer. Of the £4 million target, just over £2 million has been raised. With your help this evening and over the coming months, we hope to achieve that final £2 million to make the Haven dream a reality. The Haven Centre will include a specialist play centre, an adjoining community coffee shop and an overnight respite facility. It'll give children and young people with complex needs a fun place in which to gather, socialise and develop. And their families, people at home, will know they are safe and well cared for. It'll be a centre of excellence, available to families from all over the Highlands, and it will help create smiles. The idea is the brainchild of Elsie Normington, who understands firsthand what it's like to raise a child with complex needs. Elsie has been tireless in her campaign for a centre like the Haven. Let's hear from her now.
Hello, I'm Elsie Normington, the founder of the Haven Appeal, and today I would like to tell you what the Haven Appeal is all about. What we plan to do is to create smiles. Yes, that's right, create smiles for all of our children and young people in the Highlands, those that have severe learning disabilities and complex needs. The Haven Appeal is all about building a specialist bespoke centre here in Inverness that will serve the whole of the Highland area. Children with severe disabilities are often at the bottom of the social pile. Often their needs are overlooked, their voices are not heard, and what we want to do in the Haven is we want to create smiles for these children, these young people, to be able to socialise with people like themselves who have similar disabilities, and also to give the parents the much needed time off. And so what we plan to do is we want to build a specialist play centre and also an adjoining community coffee shop and an overnight respite facility. The project is going to cost £4 million, and to date we have raised just over £2 million, and so now we're at the stage of an urgent appeal asking all our friends, colleagues and organisations across the Highlands and further afield to help us in our bid to seek to raise that £2 million, because our target is to raise it within 1 year. So today I'm asking you to help me to create all these smiles for these children, young people and families, to bring them not only the support but also the facilities that they rightly deserve. We want to create a real centre of excellence here in the Highlands. So I'm asking you today to help me, to help all of them, those that cannot speak for themselves. Let's together create smiles for all these families. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Elsie. I love the idea of creating smiles. Smiles on the faces of the young people who will use the Haven, and smiles on the faces of the parents who will finally get some much needed respite. And as we've just heard, it's an ambitious fundraising target, almost £2 million in a year. But if we can all pull together and think about what we can do as individuals, in our own family groups, or with friends, or at work, then I'm sure the money will start rolling in. Fundraising can be really good fun. You could create a few smiles of your own as you do it, knowing that you're helping this amazing project get a step closer to completion. Now, the simplest way to give a little right now is by text. To donate £5, text Haven001 to 70970. And to donate £10, text Haven001 to 70191. And don't worry if you didn't catch that, these details will be on screen throughout the broadcast. I'll also be giving you details a little later on of a tremendous raffle, which I know you'll really want to get involved with. And we'll be hearing from a very special choir too. In the next hour, as well as hearing from Shona, we'll be meeting one or two families from across the Highlands who really need the Haven Centre to become a reality, and who need your help to raise the money to open its doors. But first, I'd like to introduce someone who is at the heart of this appeal in more ways than one. Earlier, I caught up with Rona Matheson. Rona is the community fundraiser for the Haven Appeal. She's also mum to Sarah. Rona, thank you so much for joining us. Talking to you in your capacity as a mum now, tell us about your family.
So I'm a mum with a lovely husband and 4 lovely daughters, and we live in Murrayford.
And you have a daughter with fairly complex additional needs.
Yeah, so Sarah, our third born daughter, has a very complicated syndrome that results in daily and night seizures, learning difficulties, and challenging behaviour. So yeah, she's a neat little parcel.
That's one way of putting it. It's a sort of way that only a mother could put it. Tell us about the kind of help that you got for Sarah until she turned 18.
So growing up with, Sarah went to special needs school, had a lovely little life, well looked after, had after school clubs, activities that she could go to. And we were very fortunate in that she had, she does cause us a lot of nights without sleep, and we were able to access the Orchard facility in Inverness one night every week since she was 5 years old. So it was brilliant. Yeah, she had her own friends there, and she called it our sleepover. Fantastic.
Oh, brilliant. Just like any other kid would.
Yeah.
And then earlier this year, sort of, I suppose, double whammy of COVID and of Sarah turning 18. What have the last 6 months have been like for you?
So I think you do know, as a mum with special needs, you're sort of warned that once they reach 18, they stop being a child and they go into adult services. Wow, that's like hitting a brick wall. Everything stops. So that lovely taxi rides out to meet your friends, those clubs are stopped. You're no longer a child, you're an adult. But to them, they are still the same person with the same needs. So Sarah's, everything stopped at 18. And into lockdown, everything stopped. So that's been a double whammy in a very cruel way, very cruel way.
How?
So,
what's it like on a day-to-day basis?
So Sarah was actually in a very specialised centre in London to help with her transitioning into supported accommodation up here in the Highlands. So we had to cut short that assessment. We had to bring her home within a space of 24 hours, given notice. We had to bring her home. That was never planned for her. She was to move into some supported care. But however, we've had her home, and we feel like we're still in this lockdown and isolation situation because it's week 25 now. And really, it's been hard. It's been really, really hard. No activities, no outlet, and absolutely no support, not at all. So it's been me and Ian and my other daughters. Yeah.
How has Sarah been throughout all of this?
Sarah is a family person, so she's got security from us, but very, very restricted. Has not been able to understand completely why she can't go to visit anybody or see her friends. That's her biggest statement. When can I see my friends?
And you don't have that answer for her.
Desperately, yeah, she's found it difficult. And resulting from that loneliness is she blames also us, her mum and dad, for keeping that from her. So she knows the word virus, but not much more.
The understanding of the implications and why that's not your fault.
Yes.
It might be difficult for her to come to terms with. So the Haven, it seems incredibly appropriately named. How will that impact your lives? I mean, Sarah's life, your family life, and your own life?
Well, I think, Nikki, when I thought of the Haven beginning, I was still with Sarah in school. And I looked forward to that, having access to a wonderful activity place for her, that I could take her and know it was bespoke for like Sarah and those with of her friends that have very difficult and complex needs. So I thought, wow, Sarah's going to have somewhere we're going to be able to say we can go to. Then as a parent in lockdown, I imagined, okay, so we would have had to obey all rules, but there would have been respite help. So as an adult, as a carer, as a mother, I'd get that respite that I so desperately need. And then there is the opportunity for others from all outside of Inverness that when they're traveling for a shopping spree, they have somewhere that they can safely put their young adult and a child and come and have a little bit of a day off in Inverness. The Haven is going to be a place. I just feel it's a place, one, a haven, but two, socializing. When I think of the Haven, I think, wow, let's go to the Haven today, Sarah. And it's Sarah who'll be able to say back to me, are we going to the Haven today to see my friends? And I think that would resonate with so many. Help for the carer, parent, but socializing for the young person. The Haven's going to be a place that will make you smile. That's what I think of.
Well, your own face is saying it all. I mean, you've completely lit up talking about the possibilities and the opportunities and the impact that it will have on Sarah and you and on the rest of your family. And of course, that will be replicated Highland-wide. Rona, thank you very much for just now. We're going to catch up with you a little later on because as well as being a parent, as I said, you're also the Haven's community fundraiser. So hopefully you've got some really good ideas for us as to how everyone can get involved. Thanks for joining us just now, and I'm going back to chat more to Shona.
Thank you, Nikki.
Thank you very much, Rona. Now, some of you may be familiar with that story. Rona might have been telling your story too. For others, and certainly for me, it's a real insight into just how important the Haven is and will be. Anything that you can do to help, please get in touch with Rona. Last year, Shona McPherson walked the Pacific Crest Trail, southbound, 2,650 miles from Canada all the way to Mexico in 145 days, finishing just before Christmas. Almost 5 months of daily walking. She carried her tent, her sleeping bag, all her food and water, and everything else she needed to be self-sufficient on that long journey. Shona travelled solo, although she was rarely alone. The trail can be a really busy and sociable place at times. It was a remarkable achievement. I checked the website and fewer than 8,000 people are recorded as ever having completed the entire trail. I was delighted to be in conversation with Shona McPherson for the Haven. Let's catch up with the first bit of our chat now.
Shona McPherson, thank you so much for joining us this conversation for the Haven. You did an absolutely epic thing. You did an incredible thing last year. in your own words, tell us what you did. Why would I tell you, describe it when you're here yourself?
So I went for a long walk. I hiked the Pacific Crest Trail, which is a trail that goes all the way through America, starting on the Canadian border, the US-Canadian border, all the way down to the Mexican-US border. So,
no, it's not exactly agreed how far the distance is, but it's what, 2,600 odd miles?
Yeah. The number that gets chucked around is 2,650 miles. But yeah, there's a little bit of debate either way. Yeah.
That is a heck of a long walk. Why? What was your inspiration for doing that?
Yeah, there was a few different things, and sometimes depending on my mood, I'll focus on a particular one. But I guess the different things were, one is I love nature and I love walking, and I've begun, since I was 39, I've begun to do solo outdoor adventures, and I was running out of land in Scotland. Our country stops after a while. So yeah, and I began then to look at other long distance treks. And I guess the other thing was I could. I'm reasonably physically fit. I'm healthy. Very grateful for that. I don't have massive commitments on my resources of time and energy in terms of having a family. My parents are well. They don't need me. I don't have children. And so I felt like there was a window in my life, a window of opportunity where it was possible to do this thing. And this thing was really something that lit me up and made me come alive. And sometimes I speak about it in terms of wanting to create a little bit of a rupture in my timeline. I feel like sometimes we can just get caught up in everyday routine of life, and I didn't want to kind of wake up being 70 and going, what have I done with my life? Kind of why didn't I do that thing that I dreamed about doing? All of it.
So you did. You walked the Pacific Crest Trail. How much planning, once you'd made the decision that you were going to do it, you realised you could, how much planning did you have to go into it in terms of, I mean, you were already fit, but in terms of logistics and kit and even just...
So yeah, kind of had to get my head around different things like how to sort of do my mapping. Do I carry physical maps? Really lucky with the Pacific Crest Trail, there's a kind of a phone app that you can use. So kind of around that side of it, thinking about the food and the logistics of where I get my food, and certainly for some places I had to send food parcels on. So getting my head around what would I buy when I get to America? How does the postal system work? What address do I send that to? The kit. Lots of long distance hikers could get really geeky about how light their kit is. So how to try and kind of get the weight down on my kit. Made lots of mistakes doing longer distance hikes in Scotland and had too much weight. So got quite geeky about every kilogram, every gram.
I mean, the sounds as if there's an awful lot to do. So what were your days like once you actually got on the trail? What was was there a typical day, or what would that be like?
Yeah, I mean, in lots of ways, it probably sounds really boring. A typical day was I'd wake up in my tent and I'd make my breakfast. For that, I had a little gas stove. So I'd have coffee and porridge, and then every day until I got sick of it, and then I'd stop eating breakfast or had a bar, but pretty much the same thing every day. And then packing up your tent, which can actually take quite a while, especially if it's cold. And then walking and continuing to walk, getting water, checking in the morning exactly where I'm going, where am I going to get water on that day. Then maybe stopping for lunch, as in eating what was in my pack, oat cakes or protein bars or whatever, nuts. Then doing more walking, and then at some point at night fitting up my tent and sleeping. That was kind of it. Yeah.
You did this alone, but were you alone? You did this. You set out. Step one was Shona on her own, but I'm imagining that there must have been other people who were doing the trail at the same time.
Yeah, there were absolutely. I started at the north of America and went south. So we are in the minority. We call ourselves southbounders or SOHOs. There's lots of jargon within long distance hiking. But most people, and the famous person that, the famous book or the famous film, some people listening might have heard of it, Wild. The book.
Oh, was that the film with
and
Reese Witherspoon?
The film with Reese Witherspoon, exactly. Yeah, so she was a northbounder, and that's the way that most people would do that. 9/10 of people would do it that way. But for various kind of complicated reasons, and there were a lot of those north people they went so far, and then because of bad weather, they kind of skipped a big section and then walked back walked south. So there was a lot of us actually at the start line. I started on the 4th of July, and there was quite a few people there, which was really disheartening because I was there seeking out solitude and peace and beauty, and then there's all of these people, and it's a bit, again, I don't know if it's too much detail, but it's like you're walking on this very thin path, and for that section, I was going to touch the border of Canada, and some people had touched it and then they were walking back, so you had to keep stepping off the trail to let people past on those first days.
What are the best? We don't have time for you to tell us all of them, but the bits that really stick in your memory.
Yeah, surprising to me, I suppose the things that really stick into my memory aren't just the beauty of being in nature, although that was there as a constant and I loved it. But what's the memory that's strongest for me is actually people. Although I was going to be on my own, the universe often surprises us, doesn't it? And there's a term, trail angels, and that's all sounds a bit silly now when you're talking about a normal context, but that is people who help out long distance hikers. And two particular situations really stuck in my mind. Once I was I was walking, or I had hiked to a beautifully named town called Sisters, and and that's in Oregon, the state of Oregon, and I had really sore feet, so I was going to this town to had come off trail to try and get something for my blisters and to get some new insoles. And my plan had been to hike back out on the motorway and then get back onto trail. And the weather was coming in a little bit, and this. I was in the post office sending something away, and this lovely lady just came up to me and she said, "Oh, darling, you look really tired." She's an American accent. We'll try and do that. "You look really tired. Can I give you a ride?" The post office was a couple of miles from town. "Can I give you a ride back to town?" I was like, "Yeah, it'd be great." So she was riding me then back into town, and then she said, "Where are you staying tonight? There's some thunder coming." And I was just, actually, I'm just going to go back in my tent on the trail. And she said, "Oh, actually, no, you're going to come back with my husband and I. We have a tiny house, like a converted stables, and we'd love you to stay with us." And then she made me this amazing meal. The next day, she took me in her open top car for a ride. We played music together. I saw hummingbirds in her garden as we sat out and had a glass of wine. And the kindness of strangers, that lovely lady really.
And it's the unexpected things, because you would expect, from, and there's websites and books about the Pacific Crest Trail, and you can read any number of blogs of people who've walked the whole length or done little bits and pieces. And I know that you will have done all of that as your preparation. So you'll have known it was going to be beautiful, you'll have known, all these amazing, but you won't necessarily have known that woman was going to be there at that post office at that particular time and then show you such kindness.
That's right.
But it wasn't all good, was it? I mean, for somebody who, I self-confessed, don't like the cold, you put yourself in some pretty ropey situations. So just give us a flavour of when things didn't go right.
There's a really section of the hike that really excited me, the High Sierras. So that's eventually becomes the John Muir Trail. That's in Central California, and just as I was beginning, so with that area, with the High Sierras, every day you're at least going up one mountain pass. Sometimes more than that. So I'd just begun that section, but I hadn't been feeling very well for a couple of weeks prior to that. And I was wondering if I was getting altitude sick, if I'd had altitude sickness, or kind of what was wrong. And just then, as I was in that section, it was just harder and harder for me to breathe. And I was really traveling incredibly slowly. My mileage kind of resolved to running out of food as well, because you kind of plan to have a certain amount of food for as long as you think you're going to take. And it was just like the wheels had completely come off my ability to do the kind of miles and to have the breath that I had just taken for granted. We just think, unless you get sick, you don't have to really think about your breath.
That sounds quite dangerous, actually. I mean, it doesn't sound safe.
No, it wasn't. I knew something was wrong, but I'm also sometimes I'll push through and I'll get better, it'll be fine, it's just a temporary thing, I'll adjust to the altitude. So I did keep going for a wee while, and then I just realised, actually, I think there was something medically wrong with me. So I had to come off trail anyway to get my food resupply, and I decided to get a hitchhike into an emergency room, a town with an emergency room. And even that was really difficult, knowing I was really sick. It was snowing at the time, and I was actually crying because the cars just kept passing me. But then again, just these people just come and sweep you up, and this gorgeous couple, they were only going some of the way, but they ended up going an extra 20 miles to take me to this hospital in Mammoth Lakes. And then I got diagnosed with anemia and had to get a blood transfusion.
Oh my goodness.
I guess just when you're not feeling well, it's much harder to practice sort of psychological flexibility and to sort of be grateful and all of those things that can keep you going. But yeah, it meant I actually had a lovely enforced rest in a lovely town called Mammoth Lakes in California, and lots of other good came from that as well.
Oh my goodness. Shona, let's just pause there just now, take a quick break, and we'll remind ourselves of why we're fundraising this evening, and I'll join you again very shortly. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
Thanks so much to Shona for her time. I'll be sharing more of our conversation fairly soon. First though, a reminder of why we are here tonight. Fundraising for the Haven Centre is just over halfway there, but there's still £2 million to raise. Can you help? Let's hear from Matthew and his mum Susan about what the Haven will mean to them.
I think it's important that we have a specialist play centre in Inverness because we don't have one at the moment. There is actually nowhere for children with a disability to go and hang out with their friends, play games, have fun. As a parent with a child with a disability, it's very important to know that you can go to work like any other parent and leave your child quite happily in the morning during summer holidays. Go to work knowing that they're well cared for, they're having fun, and pick them up at the end of the day.
The Haven Centre won't just be used and valued by families from Inverness. Here are Sarah and Joshua. They live in Ness, 40 miles north of Stornoway in the Isle of Lewis, and are quite excited about what the Haven Centre can offer them.
My name's Sarah Campbell, and this is Joshua, who's 8, he'll be 9 in November. And he's got quadriplegic cerebral palsy.
Okay.
We're from the Isle of Lewis, so we live in the very north of the island called Ness, which is about 40 miles from Stornoway. Joshua can't walk, so he relies on his buggy or a wheelchair that he uses sometimes at school. He's got one-to-one support workers in school, although you're probably not allowed to call them one-to-one workers. So he's got a variety of different people that help support him in school, from feeding him to changing him to helping him out in the classroom. At home, we've just actually got a new house, so we've had to put hoists in his bedroom, into his ensuite bathroom and in the kitchen area for when he gets a wee bit bigger, when we can't obviously lift him. Just now we don't actually get any additional support at all. We've not received any respite. I do know that there are some available in Lewis, but we haven't accessed that. What tends to happen is that my mum and dad come over every couple of weeks just to give us a hand, but we don't have any other family support on the island either. So it's basically just my husband and I that take care of Joshua 24/7 when, during school holidays or after school and at weekends. From what I've seen anyway, it looks like a fantastic centre, and we just have so much support for Joshua and for ourselves. It would allow us just to have some respite for ourselves, and just with all the equipment and facilities that are going to be available here. I know that's something that Joshua would certainly love to be part of. He is very sociable and likes interacting with others. So I think if he was in amongst this kind of peer group, so to speak, he would really get a lot out of it as well. People would just take time out to have a look at the Haven website, Facebook pages, and see what it's about, just to see what support it can give to young people with additional support needs, and the support it can also give to families. So I would ask you to take out some time and think about helping support with the Haven Appeal.
What a great wee smile Joshua has. Now, both those stories give a further insight into what an amazing impact the Haven will have on families across the Highlands and Islands. Don't forget, you can text at any time to donate. And please do share these text numbers with families and friends on your own social media. We'll be catching up again soon with Rona, who might have a few fundraising ideas to get you inspired. In the meantime, let's get back to Shona.
Shona, we're back. Thanks very much for sticking with us. Now, I was chatting earlier on to Rona, and she is, as well as the community fundraiser for the Haven Appeal, she is a mum who will very much be grateful when the Haven Centre is open, as will her daughter Sarah, because Sarah has turned 18, and because she's turned 18, sort of all the school and children's activities have disappeared. So she is really, really looking forward to the Haven opening. And Rona was talking about the isolation that both she and Shona have felt, particularly during COVID, when there's been nothing to do, nowhere to go. She can't see her friends, and Rona can't get the benefit of any respite care. One of the words that Rona used was isolation. She feels isolated, and her daughter feels isolated from her friends. How did you cope with, and how do you cope with being on your own and being just with yourself and your own thoughts all the time?
And maybe first of all, just to say what you were saying about Rona's experience. I guess I just want to kind of maybe put it out there, like, I'm really aware how privileged I am to do this stuff and to have that freedom, and I would never want to say, Rona, I've got it sorted and this is my tip to you at all. I think Rona could probably teach me a lot about what it's like to live the life that she has. So just with that context, I think I'm maybe a little bit unusual in wanting to seek out isolation, and it certainly wasn't the younger me didn't do that. And actually the younger me in many points of my life, probably like most of us, have experienced loneliness, and I think there's such a difference, isn't there, to being to experiencing loneliness and to having solitude. And so for me, the isolation was about solitude, and my chosen place to be in solitude is in nature and in beauty. And that kind of, when I'm in nature and beauty, I don't actually feel like I'm alone. I feel like the nature, I don't just feel like it, I know the natural world is teeming with life and with energy, and that can really feed me. Like, I'm so lucky to be able to have done that for 5 months. I literally was waking up with the sunrise and going to bed with the sunset. And obviously that's, like, we can't always do that, particularly in Scotland. I think for me, that really helped. That's why I sought it out, actually, to get away from the everyday frustrations and to, I suppose, realise that I can be with my thoughts and I can unhook from the ones that aren't helpful.
Oh, there's a skill. There is a skill right there, being able to unhook from unhelpful thoughts. But that quote you were talking about, that there will always be a sunrise and a sunset, I suppose that's a metaphor as well for living as well in the moment, more in the moment, because, you know, being able to step back and say, well, this is the situation now. So, I mean, there were grim times. Your blog and your all your writings do talk about times when it was tough out, and particularly reading one entry where your hands were so cold, it was 2 Celsius, and your hands were so cold that it was painful to get a sodden, wet tent into a stuff sack, to then start pulling on, you're having pulled on freezing cold, wet clothes, and then setting off to walk, and the sun still wasn't up above the mountains, and you were freezing, but all I was thinking was, All you think was the sun will at 11 o'clock come over that horizon and I will be warm again. So it's knowing as well that this is only for now. So even dark times and even tricky times are just sometimes only for now.
That's right, yeah. And even in those moments with the cold stuff sack, if I was then in the future thinking I've got to do this again tomorrow or the next day, that would be really pull me down. But if I'm like there in that moment and I'm also like, actually I'm really lucky to have this tent, or look, there's a bird over there, like just staying in that moment as well. I'm cold and there's other things here in this moment.
But you also talked about like the bigger picture, because I mean the big picture is that every step you took was another step towards your goal of, well, the Mexican border, which was at the start 2,650 miles away. So there's that massive big picture to keep you going as well, because what you're doing is a little part of that. But there's also the fact of, well, I can actually only concentrate on between now and lunch, or between now and actually having achieved getting my tent and my stuff sack. So was there a sort of, did being in nature give you that perspective, or how did you manage all of that thinking?
I think, I guess so. I guess sometimes I would look at the animals around me and I just think, my gosh, you live in this dark forest all the time. How difficult! You're not complaining. You can just see that actually the way I normally live is very comfortable. It was the way I was living pre-PCT might sound strange, and this probably sounds again incredibly privileged. But I was looking for a bit more of a stretch and a challenge in my life. I don't like getting too comfortable. And I'm aware most people watching this will not be too comfortable. So that probably does sound very privileged. But we do grow, don't we, from, I'm a different person. I'm the same person, but I'm a different person also to the one that left to go there, that those challenges have helped me understand myself better.
So while you're walking, I have these images of you walking through beautiful countryside with a pack on your back, and you're getting fitter and stronger as you're going, and then you're a little bit scared, so you're singing songs sometimes from your childhood. You're thinking about your next lunch or your next stop, making sure you've got enough water and enough food. But how else did you keep yourself going? Was it just you and nature, or were you plugged into things? Did you listen to music? Did you listen to anything else? How did you sort of pass the time? Because it can't have been, there must have been some bits which were a bit boring.
Definitely, and I think this is a really important point. Walking can be really boring. Like I think it's really easy, like hikers write about, oh, it's amazing, all this stuff. Lots of the days were reasonably tedious. I was still incredibly privileged and I enjoyed it. But I also just think it's actually quite good for us to be bored sometimes. I feel like I'm overstimulated. I'm back to my kind of normal life at the moment. I've been just walking in Skye. I was away for a couple of weeks. I've just got back. And I've realised just how easy it is to get back into old habits of social media addiction, which is definitely a thing for me before I left. And I'm having to work quite hard to not do that. So yeah, I sort of tried to allow myself just to be bored some of the time, to be present. In the mornings, I tended to sort of had a soft rule. I tried not to be too rigid with rules, but a soft rule that I wouldn't listen to music or audiobooks or podcasts, at least until the afternoon, just so that I could be present in the places that I was in, or think my thoughts or whatever.
Are there surprises in here for you? Are you the same Shona at the start as you were at the end, as you were at the beginning, or do you notice a change in yourself throughout the journey?
Yeah, I guess I don't notice a big difference. I feel like more, like I think I was saying when I was 39, I'm now 44. So when I was 39 and I started doing solo hikes, I feel like there was a big sort of learning curve and a big change in my own confidence. Whereas maybe with the PCT, it was more gradual. But it's funny, I was having dinner with a couple of friends the other night, and I'd been with them in Neudark for a couple of days biking and cycling, and we were sort of reflecting back on funny things that had happened, and they said, you are much more direct as a person than before you left. And I was really surprised. And I was like, oh, is that a bad thing? Like, am I being too blunt or whatever? And they're like, no, it's actually quite refreshing. You just gently will be quite direct. I was like, oh, okay. So maybe that's more of American culture rubbing off on me. I don't know.
It could be. Now, you've said a couple of times that you realise that you're incredibly privileged to have been able to pause your life and have, taken the time out of your working life and just gone to America for 5 months to do this for yourself. But you also raised money on your journey, and that it was a fundraiser as well for Mikey's Line. Tell me a bit about that. Why did you decide to do that, and what impact did the money coming in have on you?
So the year before, I'd walked the Cape Wrath Trail, and I had decided that I wanted to. And I suppose like it was that sense of just being privileged. You're like, why am I just? How can I be so lucky that I could just go walking for 16 days in Scotland? And I wanted to make it more meaningful. And Mikey's Line is it's a suicide prevention charity and helped by a text line and a drop-in centre. And so I just wanted to kind of, I suppose, give back. Or it's a charity close to my heart. So then when I was planning the PCT, the same feelings were there. And people would just really amaze me. My target was £4,000, and I was thinking that's quite ambitious, actually. I hadn't raised that much before. And yes, when things were difficult, I would just still put up a post and share. And I was just amazed at the money that was coming in and the messages that people were giving with that money. There was one very large sum of money. I think there was one time when I'd been really struggling, and so I was feeling quite low. And I think it was about £1,000 that one person actually gave, and it was anonymous, so it was a very non-showy thing.
That's
amazing. That theme of the kindness of strangers and of friends, and this feeling of not being alone at all, like going back to what we were talking about earlier, this sort of pursuing solitude, but also realizing in my pursuit of solitude that I couldn't do it on my own anyway. I had to have trail angels. You couldn't get to the towns without hitchhiking or things like that. But the support from home, and I think a lot of people really enjoyed kind of being on the journey with me as well, and it was really fun to share it.
Brilliant. Well, with that talk of fundraising, let's take a quick break, and we'll hear more from Rona again. For the Havens Community Fundraiser, Rona Matheson. Thanks, Rona.
With that talk of fundraising, let's take a quick break and hear more from the Havens Community Fundraiser, Rona Matheson.
Rona, good to chat to you again. So, £2 million in under a year. It's a tall order. How are you going to manage it?
Well, fortunately, I'm not doing it alone, so that's a big help. And we're at the wonderful position actually where we are as a team all divided up, but we have just had come on board a grants officer, so a lot of it will be done through potential speaking to the big guys with the money in different through different grant systems. But for me, I'm community fundraiser, and I'm appealing today for everybody to get on board with me. So I have lots of ideas. Our Facebook pages and all these, and our own web page is we're going to put up ideas. But Nikki, what I need is, I can't do it alone. I need everybody listening, and anybody who knows somebody that can do anything to raise a little bit of money for us. So basically, I'm saying, come and help us. We've got 1 year left to reach this target. This is an appeal. So I'm appealing tonight, as this goes out, as we show it, that people will say, I can help, and get in touch. Get in touch. I can't do it alone. We can't do it as a team. We need big team.
So, of course, the easy way that people can get in touch and help immediately is by texting. And we've given out the numbers, and we'll do that again. In fact, hopefully they'll be on the screens as we're talking just now. But other ways, I mean, your top 3 ideas, because it is hard. We should really all be in a room in a hotel right now, getting together and have people there and getting the money in. So we can't really all get together in big groups, and it is going to be harder. So what ideas have you got for people?
So one of the things I've had to do, really change in this year, exactly that, Nikki, is most of the fundraising events, they're all cancelled. that gather people together. Let's go virtual. There is so much we can do from our own homes. I think you can sponsor anything. Walk around your garden 100 times. You've never done it before. Do you play an instrument? Could you entertain for a couple of hours and gain sponsorship that way? Anything that you have a talent for, turn it in to raising money. You couldn't do that when the doors were shut, all open. But you can do it now that the doors are shut. People are very willing to help, have a creative idea. What I really want to say is my big push now, although it sounds a bit scary, is Christmas. Woo. And one big idea I really want to push this year is, do you like lighting up your house for Christmas? Because the Haven wants to hear from you. We have got a fun idea for people. And those of you who like decorating your house, you're not going to be asked anything more but to let us know, I'm a Christmas person, my house is lit up. We've got a big plan for Christmas lights this year. I need to hear from you. So that's a big push for that, a big push for that. Christmas lights.
Christmas lights, but anything that people can do, then you're absolutely desperate for people to get in touch. How do they get in touch with you, Rona? What's the best?
Yeah, and it's really important to say, Nikki, that perhaps you don't know that you have a skill, but do you want to help us? Please give me a phone and have a chat. And you can do that by going on our own website, which you will see the details of here today, and Rona at havenappeal.org.uk gets you directly to my email. And also on all these, where you see all our logo, you can Google it, contact us, and you will find me there. But please, I can't emphasize enough that we need you out there in any way to help us as a team to grow our fundraising. So please get in touch.
You're so passionate about it, Rona. It's lovely to see. But obviously, we've heard your story already, and we can understand what it will mean to you and to all the other families around Highland who are in your situation. Now, we're going to be launching a raffle and an auction. Can you tell us a little bit about how we find out more about them?
This raffle is going to run for a couple of weeks through towards the end of September, so that everybody gets the chance to enter it. Now, look, being in lockdown, we've got a little lovely little tasters for you. Literally tasters. We've got food parcels. We've got hampers. We've got a staycation. Can you believe it? We live in the best place in the world, and the Haven can offer you a little staycation, somewhere special. So you have to watch out, because there's going to be opportunity to get on board with buying a raffle for lots of prizes. People have been very generous, and details are going to follow, Nikki, for how we're running that. But it will be run through our own web page, and also our Facebook page. So again, details will not be difficult to be found, and lots of lovely things that can be won in the next few weeks.
Fantastic. Rona, we shall keep an eye out for all of that, but thank you very, very much. And everything crossed, and hopefully people will really respond to your passion and help as much as they possibly can. Thank you so much, Rona.
Thank you everybody for listening. Get in touch. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rona. And we'll be bringing details of our fab raffle before we close this evening. Stick with us. We've still got more to come from Shona, and we're ending with a very special song from Elsie and her choirs. Now, another reminder of what the fundraising is for. Here is a short clip from Julia and her family.
For Julia, it's important as well, because it's a place where she can make friendship. There will be a specialist play center where she can go in there and have a social time and do things that children do, because when they are together with their peers, they don't see the disability. They see each other as a normal child, and that is so good when they see each other as a child with no disability. It's so natural. Like when you have opportunity to have Julia with one or another friend from the school, you see how they get together so well, because Julia don't see them as disabled, she don't see Julia as disabled. So the magic happen. The magic happen of the be natural and the play. It's completely different. Like when Julia get engaged with a normal child, because the normal child don't understand Julia needs, and they start to withdraw themselves, and so that's the main thing for the Haven, is because Julia can be Julia in the Haven. She can no, she can thrive there.
Thank you to Julia and her family for that. Let's join Shona on the Pacific Crest Trail again.
Thanks. Welcome back, Shona. Good to chat to you again. In that clip that we've just seen from Julia and her family, I loved her dad's final words. He said, Julia can be Julia at the Haven. She can thrive there. Now, from what you said, although there were really tough times and worries about mountain lions and coyotes and snakes and bears and solitude and maybe not finding that in exactly the same place, you really thrived on the Pacific Crest Trail. Do you feel that you were more Shona there, or are you more like Shona at home, or has the journey, or maybe all the walking that you've done in the run up to the Pacific Crest Trail, have you reconciled the two and you're all just one? That's such a long question.
I think the short answer to that question is I'm most me. What I realize about me is I'm most me when I'm outdoors in nature. And that could be in America, that could be in the Highlands of Scotland, that could be walking down the Thames in London. But the more remote it is, I suppose the more easier it is. I'm within my work, I work a lot with people and getting them really clear on what their values are, what's the most, if this is the direction of our life, what makes them come alive, and what gets in the way. And so I think I'm least me when I am removed from the things that feed me. So when I'm removed from being outdoors, or when I'm removed from close connection with the people that I love. I think we have this amazing thing called the body, and the body feels, if we allow it, it tells us a lot of things. We have sensations, we have our emotions in it, and the more we can listen to it and notice, if we can stop thinking for a few moments and just notice, I'm actually completely out of kilter here. I'm actually feeling really sluggish, or I'm actually feeling quite low or down. So for me, and the way I work with other people as well, is helping us kind of sort of step back a little bit from the thinking mind and be in the mindful body, and to go, okay, something's not right here. And then step back, what am I actually doing? Oh, look, no wonder. I've got Instagram open, I've got Facebook open, I've got someone, blah, 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 blah. I don't know, or I'm overeating, or I'm over drinking, whatever it is that we do that pulls us away from what makes us alive. And it's much easier to do that if I'm living in a tent without lots of stuff and without 4G, and it's much harder. The work is often, I think, in our everyday lives.
When we do actually have everything just on tap and just there. So that's obviously one, well, obviously that's a lesson taken from the Pacific Crest Trail, but I think that's something that probably with your other work and your other adventures and walks and travels that you've come to for your life yourself, but the things that you would wish people to realize then. I mean, I think resilience is probably something that's come out of your most recent adventure. But what are the things that you would want people to sort of take away?
I did experience difficult feelings on the trail. Of course I did. The thing that we were sharing earlier. And I think it's just really important just to allow ourselves to feel the struggle, not to block it or not to judge it. So the times that I wasn't feeling well, or times where I was feeling bored and then judging myself for feeling bored, you kind of can get into them, you can get a bit sort of stuck even in that. And if you can just go, do you know what, I'm kind of bored right now, that's okay. Do you know what, I'm kind of feeling a bit unwell right now, I'm going to be unwell and get help. Kind of just letting the feelings move through and deciding what we want to do.
I think that's a big point you just sort of made there of getting help, asking for help, because you did, certainly from reading about all your adventures and from some of the bits you said just now, there were other people there, and you did have to, and you did actually rely on others. Although you went off for a great solo adventure and imagined a lot of solitude, you couldn't have done it without the help of others, particularly at times when things went wrong. And it's that thing, do you think that sometimes, I mean, I can only talk from my own experience, but I know that sometimes I find it really hard to ask for help and admit that I need help. Whereas if one of my friends or one of my neighbours asked me for help, I'd be only too happy to help. And there's almost a feeling of privilege when somebody asks you for help, because you're allowed to then get into their closer circle and to help them. And do you think that sometimes is something we beat ourselves up about, by thinking we have to do it all by ourselves?
Everyone that helped me on the trail had a choice, and usually people offered, so it wasn't even that I was asking, although sometimes it had this, but people have a choice, and everybody wanted to, and I hopefully got something from that interaction. And I think one of the big things that the trail taught me, even before I went out, I wrote a blog, I think it was called something like "It Takes a Village," because I'd realised even before I went out, there was no way I could do this on my own, with even just the practicalities of getting ready to go kind of thing. It's just, I think there can be something about our culture, which I think is shifting already, but there can be this idea that we're these single units, and that we've got to do everything ourselves and to be strong ourselves, and actually being able to just ask for help is wonderful, and to be able to receive it.
And I'm just thinking about my own friends and my own neighbourhood in coronavirus. We have shown ourselves to be really helpful. And I mean, my neighbours have done, I had a time when I wasn't well at the very beginning of all of this, and my neighbours were falling over themselves to come with food or offer to do shopping or whatever. And likewise, I've done the same for them. And most people, you see the way that communities have come together to say, how can we help? What can we do for you? So yeah, I think maybe if there's something good come out of this, it will be that we'll realise that it's not such an awful thing to have to open ourselves up to the vulnerability of allowing others to help us.
And I think there's research that shows that when people who volunteer, the well-being benefits for them is massive.
Anyone wants to find out more, then honestly they should head to your website and read the blog, see all the photographs. I mean, it really is, there's so much more than we've been able to talk about today. Shona, thank you so much for joining us. And actually watch your back the next time. You might find me sort of behind you. It won't be a mountain lion that'll be creeping up on you. It'll be me following in your footsteps, thinking how fantastic it would be to have an adventure like yours. Shona, it's been absolutely terrific. Thank you so much for your time on behalf of the Haven. Thank you.
How great was that to hear from Shona? What an inspiring story, and a really inspiring woman too. Now, not all of us can take time out of our lives, not so much time anyway, but there is useful advice there for all of us. Try and remember that everything we do is part of a big picture, and that we'll achieve it by breaking our tasks down into small, manageable chunks. If we can, we should try and remember to live in the moment and ask for help when we need it, and to try and stay as flexible in our thinking as possible. The big picture tonight, of course, is the creation of the Haven Centre, which will offer so much to so many young people and their families. And that will be achieved if as many as possible of us can get involved with some fundraising. We got some great ideas from Rona a wee while ago, and I'm sure you've got loads of ideas yourselves. There's a great raffle for you all to take part in. Please try and share the details of the raffle as widely as possible, so as many people as possible can take part, and then we'll raise even more money. It's simple. Details of all the prizes are now on the Haven Appeals Facebook page, and tickets can be bought on the Haven's website. That's havenappeal.org. Log on there and click on the drop-down menu for the shop. First prize is a staycation for 2 nights in the luxurious Isle of Skye Skibost View glamping pods. They look absolutely amazing. I looked at them on the website last night. Second prize is a 4-ball at Muirvord Golf Club. Not for me, I've never picked up a golf club in anger. And the third prize is a classic bubbly afternoon tea for 2 at the King's Mills Hotel in Inverness. I may have had 1 or 2 of them. There are 14 other really lovely prizes, including jewellery, hampers and store vouchers, something for everyone there. Now the draw will close on the 5th of October, so you've plenty time to get your tickets, but don't hang around, do it as soon as you can, and keep an eye on the website and the Facebook page for a list of the winners. It might be you. And don't forget to share all of that and the text number as well. Thank you so much to our sponsors this evening, Cali Timber and Building Supplies, and to the families and the young people who agreed to be filmed to tell their stories. Thanks to the great team at HCVF for all the filming and the technical support. Thanks to Elsie, to Rona, and to Shona, of course, too. And a massive, massive thank you to all of you for watching and for staying with us this long. We'll leave you with that treat that we promised you. Here's Elsie Normington and her groups Singing for Pleasure and the Rainbow Singers. And if this doesn't leave you with a massive smile on your face, there is no hope for you. Please, please get in touch with Rona if you can help. You know what a massive difference it will make. Thank you.
We are going to sing for you. We are one, we are strong as we sing our songs together. And I hope that you may be interested to donate to the Haven Appeal if you like this arrangement. Thank you for listening.
There are people in our lives, some are friends and some are strangers, who we see through different eyes. And we come from many places. We are one, we are strong, as we sing our songs together. We are one, we belong, as we share our lives together. Places in our lives, there are things we've done together,
and the memory of these times will be in our hearts forever. We are one, we are strong, as we sing our songs together.
we are one, we belong, as we share our lives together. There are seasons in our lives, and they bring us many changes. Through the low times and the highs,
As we turn our different faces. Together we are strong, we sing our song together.
each one of us belongs. We share our lives together.
We